Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to part two of the interview with Ger Sasser, which really is a focus on leadership and his current experiences, his current gleanings of how he interacts with people today, things he sees as a challenge in leadership, things he sees as a benefit, and even his own personal development into leadership has changed from a focus on self into a focus on others. If you want a little bit more of the background history of this unique individual, then you can watch part one of the series where we take about 30 minutes and talk about him in his younger days. This is a focus on leadership, core DNA of what makes him who he is today, and why we are blessed and Ashland to have him as a part of our community. I hope you enjoy.
Again, going back to that big fish, small pond, but you're having kind of the pond fish moment there again. Yeah, like how would you describe yourself, like from like a mental perspective, but like even just like as a person, really is what I'm trying to get to.
Right.
Like, so how would you describe yourself if you were to just give yourself some adjectives and say, at this time I was.
Even at that point, I was probably pretty disciplined,
Mm-hmm.
and just in the fact that like if things needed to get done, then you had to do them.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that required waking up at 4:30 or not, then if that's what has to be done, then no big deal. You just do it, right? You just make a decision and you do it. So even at 20, I was always fairly disciplined, but I was also kind of. I mean, I wasn't totally sold yet at that point, so I mean, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life at that point, by any means.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so where do you so I would define that honestly as grit. I want to be faster at this, and if I want to be 10 seconds faster at Fran, then I need to do this and that. Or, I mean, were those the types of things in your mind on a day by day basis, or was there more of a macro level goal pushing you to for that grit?
There's definitely both.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously the macro level goal. Just like I didn't want to lose anymore. I wanted to see if I could actually win. But there was also like little goals throughout the week, or even if there wasn't like a daily goal, it's always in the back of your mind that like, what's this guy doing this day? If like, because there's days where you don't feel like working out, or you did too much the day before, or you got woken up, or there's a million things that could happen. But so definitely there's little micro even conversations, like full blown conversations that'll happen in your head.
Sure.
In a workout. Just,
yeah.
thinking about your
why
competitors.
Do you hate yourself?
Yeah, it's just thinking about your competitors, and you're like, man, would this guy drop the ball right here?
Right.
Or would this guy, is he going to take a break right here, or would he keep going? And just those thoughts, and realizing that they were going to do those things, and they probably hurt just as bad as you did in that moment, but they would choose to do something that you weren't. So both.
Yeah.
This is a daily thing, and I mean, there has to be an overall thing as well. But
so that kind of like takes us into your early years, and I would say probably about that. Obviously, I think some of the characteristics we've talked about so far, grit, determination, obviously just development, and of course in that time was around mostly your physical development, right? But and so I think everybody goes to that period of time where it's all about yourself, like you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Of course, knowing you now, I know that your locus is different, right? And so if we talk about that, I mean, we still always have a tendency to be selfish. Every single one of us can be, but if we're really going to talk about now, I think is a very interesting part of your life, because there's so much transformation that I see happens from the conversation we've had that brings us in a decade to where you are now. And I think that's the most interesting piece. So, but where would you start to say the arc starts to bend in your story from Ger the individual to Ger, and you might not view yourself as in this manner, but Ger the leader, to where it's not just about you. You're now carrying a greater responsibility for others.
I mean, I don't know. It feels like it happened fast.
10 years is pretty fast. Even if you look at the whole of 10 years,
Wow.
that's pretty fast.
10 years, yeah.
I know, not to you, young pup. I
It was
know that
probably
seems
like 3 years.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I mean, even when I got married, it was like, you know, she supported my dreams and stuff, and
Yeah.
looking back, it was super selfish. So
Don't worry, I think every guy's been there.
Don't recommend that to anybody.
Yeah.
But you know, she supported my dream too. So she was getting up in the morning and let me sleep. Because we basically held one job together at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the intersection. There's probably a multitude of things as far as just like overuse injuries, having a kid, and kind of just wanting to provide more for my family, and realizing that, you know, after trying so many times, after 7 years of failing,
yeah,
you start to, you know, this is, you gave all you could for 7 years. Eventually, like, you gotta sit back and realize, like, maybe that's not where God wants me, even if you thought it was. But you know, people closer to God than me, that's happened to, even biblically.
Sure.
As far as Paul and that dude got thrown in jail. He didn't see that coming. He thought he was doing what he wanted.
The first time, he probably saw it coming the next few, many
true.
times.
But yeah, it was just like back injury, on having a kid, on, you know, the wife just having spiritual conversations and not being saved, and the wife looking you in the eyeballs and like, you know, wondering if you're gonna go to heaven one day because you just made this kid together. And so I mean, it's a combination of all those things. But
talk a little bit about, you know, that experience, because I know, like, you know, you had several injuries over time, and of course, you know, the most recent, you know, back injury you had. I know you know, there's some struggling going on there. Sometimes we see it in the box, and sometimes not, right?
Yeah,
frustrating,
absolutely,
terrible. But I mean, let's talk a little about that, because I think these are things that are people to important. They look at you, and especially around here, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, like this dude. But you have, you know, challenges like everybody else, and so talk a little bit about that kind of mental transformation. What could have been, what should have been, never will be type stuff. I mean, did you wrestle with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's probably like 3 times where I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, it's not happening. But then, like, you know, it's hard to put a dream up on the shelf after 7 years and just be like, yeah, that one's not happening. So there's always a little bit of like, maybe, but you know, looking back now, there's no way. And you know, I was healthy for 7 years, and there's a build up there where I was working out once a day for a while, and then there was a period where I was working out 2 times a day for a while, and then there was a period where I was working out 3 times a day for a while. So it'd be like, you know, fasted in the morning, and then strength training, metabolic conditioning in the evening, and then there's high skill stuff and another metabolic conditioning piece, usually gymnastics focused, because you're wrecked at that point, and your central nervous system can't handle too many weights at that point. But so that happened for I was doing that for 2 years. And then to get injured and do almost nothing, right? I'm sitting there like a recliner for 3 weeks trying to sleep, basically. And I mean, you know, my recovery went perfectly. Couldn't ask for more. But after not working out like that for even just, you know, 6 weeks before I could probably sit on a bike and like actually do something productive, I just didn't have the right mindset to come back into it. And you know, maybe if I did have the right mindset, maybe. But too much too quick.
So you talk about that mindset. I mean, what was your mindset like coming back into it? What was it, and what should have been like? So it's probably not obvious to people who are
so I mean, after the first injury, it was, I didn't really want to set it up like, you know, when you're injured and you have surgery, it's like, oh man, I'm done. But then things start to feel okay, and you're like, okay, maybe I'm not done. And then there's that decision of okay, like maybe I'll sign up for something. Let's try again. And then it was just, to me, it was just jump back in and do what you were doing for the last.
Pick right up where you left.
Yeah, pick up where you left off, and that was the wrong thing to do completely. It's just way too much. There was days I was like, dude, I don't know if I can get out of bed right now. And but I would, and then I'd go work out like a big dumbo and not listen to anything that my biomarkers are telling me, or if you're drinking, your body weight in ounces in water and your urine's still not clear, like something's wrong. You're breaking down too much muscle tissue at that point, and your body can't keep up. And so stuff like that. But that's before I threw my back out, and then I just put it up like. That was either, I mean, the doctor told me, like, the herniation would shave itself off over time.
Yeah.
Or I could have surgery and fix it fast, basically. And so, I mean, surgery is the last option for me, at least.
Sure.
But that's kind of when it, like, really sunk in, like, man, it's not happening. And then it became almost like resentment for a while.
Sure.
It was like, I've been in the gym so much that, I mean, it was just all day. There's there's no way around it.
Yeah.
It was bad. I was addicted, but then it turned into the exact opposite. And it was, if I wasn't coaching someone, I wanted to leave. Like, I didn't want to be in the building ever. I was just, I don't know why that was.
You say, like, so is this when, like, just after just like during the resentment phase, or was it just like your zeal and then you're like, or is this you just flip flop between these two things all the time, or was it burnout, or was it? I mean, what would you say would cause that, or was the cause of that?
I don't know if it was. Yeah, burnout probably had something to do with it, but I don't know, man. Just putting up a goal for 7 years was the hardest thing I've ever done. Just having your eyes on one thing, like specifically, just on one thing, basically. And then having to step away from it that was hard. It probably made me a better person in the long run, as long as you didn't know me like, 2 or 3 years ago. But, I mean, eventually it just, after resenting it for so long, you realize that God still wants you to take care of your body, treat it like a temple. And so it's kind of where we're at now. But work out when I can. Help other people work out that want to be better.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll be better than me one day.
Right.
That's the goal, at least.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about let's talk a little bit about that. What I'll just throw a term on it, but this reconciliation process. What do you remember about the grief? It's a grief process, right? So what do you remember about the grieving and the reconciliation process, that from where, like, throwing it on the shelf to, like, the different mental states or maybe key things that happen along the way to, like, like, because in your mind, like, this just isn't what God wants for me. He wants this things, and I'm okay with that.
It's just hard, man. It's hard to put in words, really. But there was a lot of on the shelf, off the shelf.
Yeah.
On the shelf, off the shelf. There's good days and bad days, and when you're when everything's good, it's great, right? But then when it's not so good, you feel like you're wasting time and other people are getting ahead of you. And I don't know, that's probably not the wrong thing, because there's younger people that are doing what I was doing 7 years ago, and so I mean, they're chasing it just as hard as I was. Whether they'll make it or not, who knows? But it was just knowing that I didn't have the time anymore, basically. I was once my kid was born, and then, like, seeing her and realizing that we're providing for another person, and then sitting down with, like, a financial advisor, and realizing you're not going to probably retire until you're 87 is, so decided to use the time training instead to help other people, as far as athletically goes. Because I added up 1 year. I think I made like 25 cents on the hour working out. Like,
right.
Compared to like cash winnings and sponsorship money.
Right.
Which is, 25 cents. What are you going to do?
Right.
But that was one of my worst years. But still, it was still like a step back, and like, man, I could use my time way more like wisely. And still, because when you're that deep into it, it's not about health anymore, So I figured I could step back, help other people, and still maintain my health. and I think I've done a decent job of that.
Mhm.
But it's funny when you say put it on the shelf, because I literally have a $500 bottle of wine
Mhm.
that I bought like
Yeah.
7 years ago, 8 years ago, 7 to 8 years ago,
Mhm.
and I just put it up, and I was like, I'm not opening this puppy until I make it. And I still have it. So now I'm like, man, maybe I'll open it when I pay my house off. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe I'll just always have it. Who knows? My kid will find it one day and he'll be like, man, Dad didn't even drink. What's this here for? Wonder what this story is. Hopefully they can find this video.
Yeah. Yeah. For the
They're like,
history.
this is it.
Like, oh, this is what it was for.
Yeah, so.
Do you remember? I mean, do you feel like more fulfilled now that you're doing this thing with others versus when you're chasing your own dreams? Or would you put it like, no, it feels good, but like in a different way? I mean, I don't think there's a wrong answer to this question. I'm just curious.
No, I think it's more fulfilling now,
Mhm.
for sure. I mean, there's a community aspect, and
Sure.
when I was working out, it was. I mean, there's a community aspect there, but it's all business oriented. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
like, we'll sponsor you this and we'll provide you that, but you have to do X,
Right.
or you have to do XYZ,
Mhm.
or if you don't do well enough, then you just get ripped off, and that's that. But now, like, if I get sick, or like I was throwing up the other day, I ate bad shrimp or something, I got food poisoning, had to cancel everyone, and just getting phone calls and text messages from people I didn't even message, saying that they were praying for me and hope that I felt better, and let me know when I felt better so I could schedule again.
Mhm.
And like I canceled that day because I thought it was food poisoning and I'd be okay the next day, but I had people canceling for me on Friday,
Mhm.
just if I needed it.
Mhm.
And they're like, hey, just let us, like, no big deal if you're not. And it was just like, man, that's cool
Mhm.
that somehow there's this inner web of community that cares about me as like a human being and not
Mhm.
just like a hunk of meat to make them money.
Mhm.
So it's definitely more fulfilling now, and even more so now that I've done it long enough to like a kid came in the gym the other day, and I had trained him in 7th grade, and this was like a long time ago. It
Mhm.
was back at like the old gym when I didn't do this often.
Right.
It was just like, okay, I mean, I guess. And
Mhm.
I didn't really know what I was doing. I've learned a lot. But, he came by, and he just graduated from Louisville, and he was selling insurance. And he just stopped by, not even to sell me, he didn't even give me his card. He was like, dude, you remember me? And I was like, nope. He was like, and then it's like, I just graduated from Louisville, man. I just want to say thank you. He played baseball there.
Mhm.
And he said thanks, and then I taught him a lot, and really helped him as an athlete, like growing up, and so that was kind of cool. That might happen more later, who
Right.
knows?
Yeah. Sure.
Especially when the head count has increased significantly.
Sure.
So,
The
but
odds
that
go
was just
up.
like
Sure.
the odds go up, right? But so that was a fulfilling moment, and it was cool to, I guess, be appreciated in some sense, other than, I mean, I know my wife and my kid appreciate me, and they
Sure.
voice
They're obligated
it.
to. Right.
And then I mean, they voice it.
It's like
and,
everybody's mama loves them.
yeah,
Right.
right. But so I'm definitely more fulfilled now. And I mean, I just work out with people that want to be better,
Mhm.
and even if I'm better than them right now, like they, it's a good push for them, and
Sure.
it puts me in the gym. And if no one else is there, then I just don't do anything, and so be it.
With the outpouring of like the response to when you got sick on the one day, right? And you're talking about like how it was kind of, how you were kind of astonished by it or whatever, like,
Yeah.
certainly touched by it, that. So, but what do you think is the reason that you got that kind of response when you were sick?
I mean, I guess just the relationships I have with people.
Mhm.
I mean, that's first and foremost. Even as an athletic trainer, it's not like your first job description is to create the relationships with the kids and the coaches and the parents. Because if you don't have a good relationship with them, then it doesn't matter how much you know or how much you want to get done.
Mhm.
Kids won't try as hard. If they're not having fun, they don't want to be there.
Mhm.
And so we try to. I try to. It's on the forefront of my mind when I meet someone.
Sure.
That you want this to be a good relationship with someone that you can trust, and they can trust you, and you're reliable, and you're gonna have fun, but at the same time you plan to respect each other and do work.
Mhm.
But yeah, just that keeping relationships first has really helped in the long run. So yeah,
I feel like that personal aspect is so important to be an effective. In this case, it's coaching, but I think effective leadership it translates down to that.
yeah, absolutely.
Thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It's a cool feeling just knowing that like I'm about to move, and just knowing that like if I was like, hey guys, like I'm moving everything on this
you'd
date,
have 100 people there.
I'd probably have 100 people there.
Oh, you would, absolutely.
And I mean, people would be asking me like, hey man, you want my truck, or you want me to come over? I'll take a load over.
And they'd probably pay you for the experience as a coaching. It's like functional fitness, lift with the knees.
I don't know if I got that far. But honestly, if I put a date on it and just left it open invite, I really think I could move my house in like an hour or two.
Yeah.
And that's just because the door would limit in and outs. You know what
I'm
saying?
Yeah.
Like
throttle, you'd have bottleneck issues.
Your throttle, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about like, you got married to Cass, which is a funny story, but I'll let somebody else tell that sometime. Okay. But because it's a great story. But so you get married to Cass. You guys are, two. You're married, but of course you're still like two very independent people. You're doing your things. You're still supporting your dream.
Yeah, right.
You have Kyler, still kind of supporting the dream, but now you have a kid,
Absolutely,
and that's really awesome. Where do you feel like it started to sink in? Like, wait a minute, like I need to change this up a little bit. It's wife and family and stuff first. You talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when my first was born, second's on the way.
Yeah.
In like 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know. It's awesome.
So
three.
3.
We're all excited.
Crazy.
So
trying to get all the kids done so I can.
I can't wait for him to be here. I'm speaking positive information.
Yeah. You have to edit that out.
Yeah, that's gonna be edited out.
Okay, but the family thing definitely started kicking in when I got back from when we had Kyler. So we had Kyler, and then it was like a week or two, and it might have not even been that. It might have been like a couple days after I went to live in.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
Or I wasn't there, but I remember hearing the story. So you had Kyler, and then you're like, "That's awesome! I'm off the train, right?"
Yeah, and What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? First of all, as soon as I married my wife, I flew to California the next day for 2 months and lived there. And this time it was Utah. So the only time I saw my daughter when she was first born. And first of all, everyone says that when you have a kid, like you're just instantly attached, and that was definitely the case for Cassie. Like she was just like, "Oh man, I gave birth to this thing. It's mine." And like for me, it was like, this is not real yet. Like this is crazy. It's a job opportunity in Utah to however you want to say it, exercise or whatever you want to work out
to pursue
basically.
Your personal goals, right?
Yeah. Yes. And so I went to Utah, and that was the worst idea ever. Like looking back, man, it was like, don't do that unless it's a life-changing amount of money.
Go to Utah or
no, Utah was great. Utah was great.
Right.
Provo was a little weird, but mostly because the grocery store was closed on Sunday. And it was just
most things are closed on Sunday in Provo.
What's happening? Yeah. It was wild, a ghost town.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So how long did you go to Provo to work before?
So I was there like 45 days or so, living in a hotel.
And this was just so you could train with other people? Is that what you were going there for?
So it was the Professional Grid League or whatever. So it was planned to be like a TV show thing.
Oh, okay.
Where it was filmed in advance, and then they made it look longer than it was.
Yeah, sure.
Just to cut costs.
Or you do everything a day, and they stretch it out
or
for
45 days.
6 weeks,
but yeah, exactly. Yeah. You do all the matches, and then bam, it makes it look like it was 6 or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
So, I forget how well versed you are in this stuff. I had no idea that existed. So now I watch everything. I'm like,
He's wearing the same clothes.
Exactly. So I was over there, and then my wife and kid learned how to live without me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then
I do actually.
Yeah, and then I come back 45 days later. So my kid's like 2 months old.
Like, who are you?
And they already have a system in place. You know what I mean? My kid's sleeping in the crib already. and Cassie's just doing, and she expects me to just jump in, and it's like, well, I don't want to like, you're rolling, like I'm
Right.
just gonna get in the way.
Right. And you don't know what to do, right? Like you come in
Yeah,
there.
it was like I can't imagine military families.
Yeah,
Oh my
same.
gosh, dude,
Mhm.
that was just 45 days. They're gone for like a year. Your family's learning how to live. Oh man, I don't know.
Mhm.
That was the most trying time. Like just like
Just coming back and settling and just dealing with that, like
yeah, just like marriage wise.
Yeah.
That's the only time like there's been like friction
sure.
of like serious friction.
Well, yeah, 'cause I would imagine, right? Because that was a serious commitment. You know,
Oh, yeah.
And despite, even if she was 100% on board with it, like you say, you go do that, and she's like, okay, I'm committed to this. I have to figure out how to do it all on my
Yeah,
own. And
right,
now,
yeah.
and now you roll up,
Yeah,
and
it's
she's
just,
like, what do you think? What do you think
Yeah.
you're doing?
like shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
No maternity leave. Just like
Right.
I had a couple coaches here that gave her like 2.5 weeks off, which is
Mhm.
not enough.
Right.
And she's
sure.
getting more this time. And and then it was she just did everything while I was working in Utah,
Sure.
which to her was probably
Right.
me running around having fun for 14 hours.
Lifting weights with
and then,
dudes.
yeah,
right?
lifting weights for 2
Right.
at a high altitude. Whoop-de-doo.
Right.
And I mean, there was money involved that helped us, but coming back was definitely the most trying time. But then just the more time I spent with my daughter, the more I realized that like she's completely helpless, like
Mm-hmm.
and like the only reason she's alive is because of you, and every smile is because of you,
Right.
and like just watching her grow and then like mimic things, and and eventually I can't pinpoint a time or like a
Sure.
but it was like, dang dude, I love this thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the beginning it was like, man, it just felt surreal. It was weird, and I think it'll be much faster this time.
Sure.
Just because I know what's coming because
Right.
I've done it once. So I think it'll happen much more
Well,
naturally
you'll
this
look to
time. But
duplicate a relationship,
yeah,
right?
right.
So was it really kind of this? You feel like this? You're settling, like, wow, like, I really love this kid. That realization of where like she's a part of me or whatever, an extension of you, and
Yeah.
you feel like that's kind of like the turning moment where all of a sudden you're stepping back and like it's the me second thing, or I mean, do you feel like that's
Oh
it, or,
yeah, absolutely. Just like, oh yeah, just like seeing the experiences that I can have with her, and like, just like the you see then you start comparing yourself to like all these other parents, right? And like they're going around like having vacations, and like
Sure.
you're like, man, like I only work enough to like live right now.
Right.
Like much like I'm never taking my kid to Disney World, you know what I mean? Unless something changes.
Right.
And you see everyone's, and of course it's on Instagram. I'm sure there's bad times too.
Yeah.
Because they just put what the best up front, right?
Sure,
Of course, as anyone would naturally. But just seeing that and like wanting that for your kid,
Mm-hmm.
and like just to see her smile like that towards you is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then having a kid has made me like at least 10 times closer with my dad as well.
Sure.
Just like looking back and being like, oh.
Because you have more of an appreciation. Would
Oh
you say?
yeah, like wow, dude, you really love me a lot. I can't, but that's nuts. So,
Mm-hmm.
but
And also, too, I think then too, like I think
everything.
maybe with that, because I think I can remember back to when my father was still alive and having kids. Like it allows you to have, or I don't know if you share this, but I think it allows you to have a shared love. You know what I mean, for that child, because obviously
absolutely.
loves his grandchild. I
Yeah.
mean, I've seen your dad and your mom. The way they spend a lot of time, and like, of course, your daughter's their world, right?
Yeah.
When she's around,
First one.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah.
So of course, gets all the attention.
Oh yeah.
But and the same thing too. Like now, you actually have that shared like affection. You both want equally like what's best, even if you disagree, like and like how to do things or whatever, right?
Yeah,
like you're
right.
like, but you both the sentiment is like it's all wholly placed in that love for that child, and it does that. My question: do you think you could have connected before having your daughter in the manner that you do now? Do you think it's always something you've always possessed?
Probably not. She definitely has helped for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Just as far as like when to be firm and when to be lax, and when to, because 9 times out of 10, she's only 3.5,
Mm-hmm.
but like she already knows like to do things when I say them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like she also knows like different times when it's like, okay, Dad's just being goofy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can get away with saying no this one time or whatever,
Right.
you know.
She knows she knows the ins and outs of the system.
Yeah, she knows just based on the situation now, which is
Mhm.
cool to see in a 3-year-old because she didn't for forever. But now she knows, like, and she can tell and pick up on mannerisms and see when it's serious time or when it's, if we're goofing, because you want to have fun with your daughter too. You want to see her laugh and joke and have fun and experience the world. But so that's definitely, the kids pick up on that too, and it's helped me raising a kid, knowing when to do those things, of like when to be firm or when to be soft, or when you need to pull someone over to the side and send the rest of the group out on a run and stop them as they go out the door, or whatever, just to speak to them privately, or which is never fun, but it's always more like the thing that you don't want to do that needs to be done, of course. It's like, gosh. But
what do you feel is the most important leadership quality? What would you feel like a leader has to have first and foremost to be a good leader?
To be a good leader,
yeah.
It's just, to me, it's probably just the ability to maintain relationships. I feel like almost any workplace, it doesn't really matter what you are. Like my dad he worked for UPS, and like he will tell you to this day that his job was to make relationships. And I feel the same way. It's like I own a gym and I train teams, but like if it almost feels secondary to forge your relationships with people or kids or whoever it may be. So I having the ability to forge relationships is, to me at least, probably number one.
What do you think's the biggest leadership mistake?
Biggest leadership mistake. That's a good question. Probably forcing yourself on other people and just assuming that they want what you want. So I mean, I've made that mistake before, and
I have too, for sure.
Ran some people off, but live and learn, right?
Right.
Be
Hopefully.
better for it. Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't take too many times.
So this is might seem like an interesting or a different question, but I did give you these questions months ago, so.
Oh, perfect. I read them.
You're right. I actually committed to memory. What breaks your heart the most?
What breaks my heart the most?
Yeah.
It's gonna sound weird. There's you're gonna know exactly who I'm talking about too. Feels bad, but so there's a kid. Anyone from here is gonna know who I'm talking. I can't say this. There's a kid that
I think I know where you're going, but go ahead.
He plays basketball, right? And he also basketball is his primary sport. And he's way better at tennis than he is basketball. And well, that's all I'll say about that. But he gives 100% in his games and his tennis matches, and he's absolutely phenomenal. And then any practice I've ever seen him in, and I've watched a few, just either on the basketball court or even if it's with me in the gym, it's always 60, 70, 75% effort. And it's just, dude, it just stinks to see someone with that much potential. Like, it really hurts, man. He just has, because he's already good, right? And he feels like he's good, and, why try and practice if he's that good already? And, honestly, I think it's because he made the same mistakes I was making.
Sure.
Where he is the big fish in the small pond, but he hasn't been outside the small pond yet, and he doesn't feel the need to even to give everything he has in practice. But so that probably, making the same. There you go. I figured it out.
Oh, there you go. You got there.
Making the same mistakes that I did. Yeah, for sure.
I can identify that. That's gut wrenching myself. Wait till your kids get a little bit older,
rough.
and then you see that pattern repeating. And yeah, believe me. Yes,
that's probably the hardest part about being a parent.
Oh, it is.
Just knowing when to sit back and let your kid fail, man. Here we go.
It's gonna happen. Like so many things come to my mind right now, but I have older kids, and I recently had a conversation with my oldest, and I was like, "Look, man, you're your own guy, and I love you regardless. I'm just telling you, I did this and it's not it's not like it's so wrong. Like I can tell you, like I can pattern match. I can tell you what's going to happen if you go down this
Right.
route.
Yeah.
I don't want it for you. You can do it. I mean, you're a grown person. Like
Yeah,
literally, I have
right.
adult children.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just telling you, I love you, and like,
This is-
but all I could do, yeah, it's like even
Yeah,
now
it's rough.
frustrating talking about
Yeah.
it, right? Anyway,
Yep.
yes.
So that's probably
yeah.
what breaks my heart the most.
What do you love most about your spouse?
Just her willingness to support me. Just like, I guess, her selfishness.
Mhm.
As a mother and a wife.
Mm-hmm.
Her selfishness, for sure.
And what do you love most about your community? Because you're pretty active in the community now. Like go taken in the last year.
Yeah, it feels weird too because I didn't used to be.
Same. Like 2 years ago, I wasn't very, and now like I'm like all about it.
Yeah. Probably just how supportive they are.
Mm.
And you know, it makes me feel good about like where Kyler will grow up,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that she has like, you know, people to support her the same way that I'm doing with their kids, or because you know you see grandparents like taking tickets or and they're still involved. You know, their kids are grown
Right.
and doing whatever, and they might not even live here anymore, but you know they're still involved, and so that's probably the coolest thing. It's just to know that Kyler's going to be in a spot where like people are going to care about her just from who her dad is or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So,
the relationships are going to extend to her, right? Is there someone in your community that you either emulate or admire as a leader? You say that person's a leader, and you like try and follow those qualities, or perhaps you just hold up on a pedestal as a leader.
The boys basketball coach, but
Jason Mace.
Yeah, Jason Mace. He I don't know. I've taken some of his stuff just from the locker room, or like he's one of the first ones where it's like he like lives it as a coach. You know what I'm saying? And there's no fluff about him. He's real. He's honest, and I'm gonna have to work with him more just because I haven't quite. I don't know exactly how he does it. You know what I mean? But because he only, this is year 2. This is year 2, so it's not like he's had kids for 4 years,
right?
And then you would expect like his systems to be in place and rotating and exactly like what he wants to be done, and not that those can't change, but
right. He hasn't had a chance to develop over years, right? Develop
yeah,
in the
right.
program.
So like he's got seniors that have only known him for 2 years,
right?
And just the difference between his team and other teams that come to me and the way they act it doesn't even make sense in my brain. It really doesn't. And just like the effort that they give and like the camaraderie there, I don't. So, yeah, I got some figuring out to do.
Well, but I mean, I think that's the important thing. I mean, because also too, like in the same way, I mean, I do share, by the way, like your admiration and respect for him as a leader. I've commented to several people about that, and I take notice. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I take
right,
notice
right.
about things he says, he does, as well as others. But I think it's important, the aspect. But I would say the one thing I've noticed too, on that same vein, is just the level of commitment from the kids when they're in there to be present.
Right.
The commitment to the process, to the program, to each other, to hold each other accountable, themselves accountable. Like I say, there's some there like 60-70%. But I would say, like by and large, when I've seen the kids in there working, that's the exception and not the rule.
Yeah,
like you got kids in there that would give more, but like also you're being wise and holding them into that place. You could ask more and they would give it.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
You're applying wisdom to honor that commitment from them.
And you know, it's funny with the kids because you have the exact opposite happen too. Some of them are giving 100%, but they make it they try to fluff it like it's their 80. You know what I'm saying? Just to talk smack to the other ones.
Right,
and it's like, but then you could see it, and you're like, okay, I see you over here. I've been there, man. You can't trick me. But you know, yeah. Just I mean, I've stayed after and watched their practices just to like try to learn, or like walked in the locker room because he considers me part of the team and I can do that, which is nice. And just to kind of just to learn. So he's been a big help. But
So, and finally, is there anything you want to say?
just remember, it doesn't hurt to ask, right?
Yeah.
You have it's like, we used to host a gym party and like, for 30 or 40 people. And then I always wanted to keep it local, right?
Yeah.
And so I always felt awkward asking. But the worst thing they're going to say is no.
Yeah.
And so, like, what's it to me if I ask for a 20% discount? It's like,
Right.
I'm bringing 30 to 40 local people to your place. Like, this is your chance to impress them so they'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just ask.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, humbling yourself to ask will get you a lot of things. I've only had a few kids come to me and say, because, they're high school kids. They're like, man, my season's over. That's it. I'm done. I kind of want to come to your gym.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But like, they'll pull me to the side and be like, dude, I can't, like, I don't have a job. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
this. And just to humble yourself like that as a 17-year-old is,
Sure.
I was like, yep. It's like, no big deal. We'll figure something out. And then, typically I don't give it out totally for free, just to make
Sure.
sure that they want to be there,
Well, sure.
You put some kind of, okay.
Well, you have to put some value on the business.
Yeah, right,
And
right, right.
Something free has no value.
Yeah, right. So, you tell them they have to come so often, or maybe they have to mop the floor every other day, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, it takes 10 minutes.
Right.
So, in and out.
Right.
But something like that.
Right on.
So, doesn't hurt to ask.
Well, right on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Free raise or whatever.
Thanks, my man.
No problem.
Thanks, Ger.
Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed the conclusion of the interview with Ger Sasser. It was really such a blessing and great experience to get to spend time with him and learn more about him. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about Ger, you can go to the YouTube playlist or the Facebook playlist and watch some of the segments. There's additional components that didn't make it into this big portion of the interview. Also, if you go to swya.today or startwhereyouare.today, you can find a list of other videos and blogs that we've written on this topic of leadership. I look forward to bringing you more in the future. Thanks for watching.